All right. Okay, let's get right into this. Hello, everyone. My name is Vimbai. I am the founder of The Weight She Carries. I have with me a wonderful guest. Now, you see her name there, right? Her name is Ratidzo Mutangadura, but she didn't add doctor there because she's a medical doctor. So we will refer to you as Dr. Mutangadura. How are you doing today? Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to have a chat with you and discuss a few things.
Yeah. I'm so glad that we could do this. Both of us right now are in Harare. It's a shame we actually didn't do this in person. We could have just met up and done this in person, but it's all right. I guess for now the virtual will work this time around. We can always meet up at some point.
Yeah.
So everyone joining us, thank you so much for tuning in. We are going to be discussing a few things here in our discussion today. Dr. Mutangadura is joining us. She's a recent medical school grad, and she also has an organization. It's a charity that is doing some amazing things for young girls, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. But for right now, tell us, so can you tell me about your upbringing?
So I grew up here in Harare in a middle-class family, a Christian middle-class family, and I have two sisters. My one sister is currently based in Malawi. She's also a medical doctor, and she's currently practicing there. And then my younger sister is currently in Mauritius University. And yeah, both my parents, I was raised by both my parents. And so yeah, we a normal family. I was at school at Bishopsley. Then Peterhouse, moved to Peterhouse to go to Chizzy because I used to swim. I swam for Zim for 9 years. So that was a huge priority. I wouldn't tell my dad this, but I think it was a little bit more important than my academics. But not in Emily. Yeah, definitely. We all grew up playing sport, instruments, and academics. My sisters definitely fell more on the instruments and academics. They both played piano up until high school, and I decided to play sport. And yeah, something that was always in our family was my parents always emphasized hard work, dedication, perseverance. And this is not to say everything always worked out, but they always said, dust yourself off, and you have to keep it moving and just be sure about what you're doing and succeed, or do your best to succeed, and always have a solution, way to go about things. So very normal family and very lovely, encouraging parents. So I think I'm very lucky in that respect.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, so it's interesting that you swam for 9 years, you said.
Yes, I started swimming.
What was that like?
Sorry?
What was that like? Because you were doing this at school?
Yeah, yes. So initially I started swimming at school. We all had to when we were like 6 or 7. And I remember we did swimming lessons. And then my mom was like, oh, try, club swimming. A friend of hers was saying, try club swimming. So I started doing that when I was 7. And then I started doing, I think I made the Mashonaland team when I was 8, and then made the Zim team when I was 9, taught for the first time just before I was 10. And it was a lot of hard work. And the training became more as I got older, like up until 17, maybe 4 to 5 hours of training a day. And obviously
Wow.
my dad, you still have to do school. It just does not replace school. So that was definitely a bit, but then I think it was all worth it. Definitely. And I learned so much. Besides the actual act of swimming and being in the pool, I got to travel, meet many new friends, and acquire skill sets that I think have definitely helped me, like being hardworking, understanding that you have to pick yourself up, understanding that sometimes you have to wipe those tears and keep it pushing. And so those are the things that swimming really teaches you, and amongst discipline and also people skills. So things that people don't see at the surface that definitely I think I learned. So I was at high school at Peterhouse, and then I decided to move to Chizi because I wanted to join the High Performance Center here in Harare. So I was there until the end of midway through lower six. And then my sister, who had started in Malawi and was now in second year, she phoned one day and she says, "Do you know there's pre-med here?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" So of course I was interested, and I was like, "Okay, let me have a look. Let me see if the qualifications equate with A level." And they did. So I applied. Within a month, I got a reply and they accepted me. So I left for pre-med when I was 17, and then went to Malawi. And I was at the College of Medicine, which is now the Kamuzu University of Health Sciences. And yeah, I was there throughout and just finished fifth year. So it was 6 years of a lot of school, but I'm done and I'm happy.
Well, so you went when you were pretty young. You were 17 when you left.
Yes, I was 17. Yeah, it was a little young, but I felt like, to be honest, I prayed about it. And I was like,
Yeah.
is this the decision for me? Because at that point, my decision was continue applying and speaking to universities, mainly in the United States, because I was thinking of going there for swimming, or um, I knew that the other path was, and then start medicine later or start medicine now. And I prayed about it, and I was just like, I don't know, God, yeah, you're gonna have to draw it out for me here. And to me, it seemed
Yeah.
like that was it, because I hadn't heard about this program. My sister phoned so randomly at like 1 p.m., not expecting a phone call, and it was, "There's pre-med here. You can do it if you want," and just ran with it.
Yeah. So what was that like, leaving home to go live in another country? Now your sister was already there, so maybe that made it a little easier. But how was that your first time relocating to outside of the country?
Yes, it was. I think culturally, there are definitely cultural differences between Zimbabweans and Malawians. There are more similarities than differences, definitely. But I think definitely something I knew, as you know, someone who had been exposed to people of different cultures and had family of different cultures. I had to respect the culture, and when in Rome, do what the Romans do. And so I think for me, that was a bit of a shock, because um, my parents are relatively relaxed about most things. So in a culture that is somewhat more, what can I say, more conservative. They're more conservative than Zimbabweans. So that was the main thing, really. But I think once everything, the water found its level, and I looked at everything, and I was like,
Mhm.
you know what? If people can, I can definitely embrace the culture. But on my end, I also wanted, people to accept that I'm not going to change completely. Um, I'm not going to forget everything I've been brought up doing. To adopt your culture, I will respect it. I'm in a new environment. I'm this Zimbabwean, and there's only two Zimbabweans in the class. Who I only found out the other Zimbabwean was there. Um, I think almost towards the end of pre-med. So I
Oh,
think those things were also all young and didn't know how to handle it. But in the end, it worked out. I have made friends, so for that, I'm grateful. Our charity organization name is Chengetai, and we're based here in Zimbabwe for the most part. Although most of our members are in different countries, and yes, we do teach girls how to hand make their own reusable sanitary wear. And for me personally, I had an experience where I was just talking when I was at school. I was talking to a woman I met, um, and she mentioned that, I'm having a baby soon. And bearing in mind, this woman was 18, and she had two children and had a third one on the way. And I was a bit like, okay, you're 18, three kids. And my questions were, okay, so what do you use to take care of yourself after you deliver? Because a lot of women bleed a lot and have quite a bit of discharge after they deliver. So I was like, okay, so what do you use? And she explained what she used. And in my mind, I was like, there's no way this is sanitary, nor is it safe. But the main thing for me was, it by no fault of her own did she have to resort to use something that was not safe for her. And I think I picked up the phone, spoke to my mom, and she was like, Tizo, this is also a big thing in Zimbabwe. And I said, yeah, I remember reading about this. But something exists, but you don't know to what extent it exists and to what extent people are forced to go to take care of the menstrual hygiene. And obviously, if you don't have maternity pads, you have to resort to using rags or other pieces of fabric. Um, and that, if you don't have, are not equipped with the knowledge, are definitely not safe for you. And with that said, I have a friend who I was at school with, Tafadzwa, and I remember we were at Peter House together in Form 1, and we were like, one day we should do something that, makes sense and contribute to the society. And so I called her that weekend. I was like, Tafadzwa, I've heard this. And she was like, yes, I think let's do something. And I was fortunate enough to meet Tinashe a few weeks after that. And a few members have joined, such as Kudzai. We have Rimbi on board also. We have Rudo with us and Nyasha. And so with all of that, I had the discussion, and Tinashe was like, I don't know much about menstruation. He's a guy. And we were like, we all have to get our heads together and do something about this. And now the question was, we're so broke. So what do we do? So literally, I came to Zimbabwe with $3, and I was like, okay, this is a starting point. And we printed raffle sheets, we sold raffles, we are privileged to have the support we do because people donated gifts such as cakes, whiskey for whiskey hampers, chocolate for chocolate hampers. And then we had our fundraising event where we raised a couple $100. So now we definitely had a bit more than $3 to our names. So we were able to do something about it. And we had our first outreach. And from there, we've just grown and evolved. And our team has definitely expanded, and which is very exciting for us to keep something that is borderline taboo, especially in our society, on the forefront and discussed by many people, and most importantly, involving men in the conversation.
You're right. It's so taboo, and it's so strange to me because it's something that's normal, you know? So why is it taboo?
I think it's something that um, we have discussed as a group and asked, okay, so why are we in this situation? We live in a patriarchal society. And the truth is, it's easy to blame men and say, you don't want to discuss this. But the question is, are we also including them in the conversation? And because it's something that they're told by their dads and grandfathers, this is not your story. Like, this is a woman's thing. Even if they want to approach it, they don't know how to approach it. And also, I think because we have, as women, been put in a position where we are quiet about issues and are hiding the conversation, the issues, the problems associated with the discussion are not brought to the surface. Like some men, we've had discussions with friends, and they're like, you bleed for 5 days. I thought you just bleed once and you're done. Or I had 20-year-old men. And I'm like, we haven't included them. And someone who wanted to learn. So I think a combination of, obviously, some men don't want to learn, but from my experience, the vast majority do want to learn, but they just don't know how to approach it. And then women play a role in that. When we have sons, we don't explain to them, like, this is a pad, if you're at school and a girl, you see that she has something red on the back of her skirt, just tell her, go check yourself. And girls know what that means. So I think little things like that, where more effort needs to be made on both ends, because at the end of the day, people in position of power right now where we stand are men. And only once they're enlightened will they be able to make decisions that are suitable and sensitive to issues regarding menstruation and the woman's reproductive health system. So a number of factors that I think, need to be tackled step by step, starting with sensitization to the discussion and the consequences of the lack thereof of menstrual hygiene management. No, definitely. And I think that's something we definitely bring to surface as Chengetai. Our motto is actually Eshona Tsumo, it's Chirere Mangwana Chikozo Gurerao. And the truth is, we are doing not only for that one girl who we're teaching, we're hoping that as Chengetai, we teach her how to make the pads. And we do this thing where we go and we talk to the girls first and, we break the ice and we talk to them about them, school, what's happening. Being a woman, are they excited to be a woman, if they're young girls? And building the confidence, instilling in them that they have value, they are important, they are pillars of society. And our hope is that by us teaching them all these things and teaching them that this is not a big, bad, disgusting process, it is normal anatomy. Every woman goes through it.
Yeah.
And it's such a, you get to bring life into this world one day if you want to. And those are things that we the girls about. And like what you're talking about, having water poured over you, those are situations that put girls in a position where they're like, okay, so is it really that much of a blessing if this thing that's happening to my body is causing me to be abused, or is causing me to resort to scary things to acquire the pads? So these are the things that we need to do as women, to try and instill in these girls a sense of confidence, as well as telling them that there is a solution. And you can be part of the solution for someone else one day too, hoping that they're part of this. We're creating a massive cycle of things that we hope they can put back into the society and do the same thing for the next girl in 20 years. I think that would be the best thing, to hear that I was taught how to make these pads and I, or I taught my 8 cousins, or whatever the case may be, which is the goal at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. So talk to me about what goes into like some of the materials you use in making these pads.
Okay, so we have what we call a gold standard, because when we teach the girls, we store by all the fabric. So it's fleece material and toweling, and the basic needle and thread, and you can either use a fastener or a button. And then you have a butterfly that makes the body of the pad, and then toweling that makes the inner part that is removable, so you can wash it and separate it. So that we believe in that, because we want to separate the layers so that the girl can wash them as easily as possible, lay it out in the sun, and then it's sterile. But we do tell the girls that just because you can't go to a store and buy fleece, we do that for sanitation purposes and the fact that you are delivering a service for these girls. But we tell them that even an old fleece jumper, we all have fleece jumpers, babies have fleece jumpers, and we teach them that you can use that. And then the toweling, an old towel that you no longer use, you use bicarbonate of soda and lemon. And if there's stains, you can use vinegar to wash, and you lay it out in the sun. And then you can start your sewing and you've got your pad. And other options that exist that we tell them is, a recent one, we started using poly fabric. You could actually use cotton, and also sheet is another good fabric that people are using these days, and it's very robust. So you do the same thing. Anyone can have a look at our YouTube channel to see the steps needed to take. And so it's very, very pocket friendly. Approximately, using store-bought fabric costs about 20 cents a pad to make. But obviously, if using a jumper that's been used before and you're sterilizing it, essentially it's free. So our aim is to provide solutions that anyone has, or someone with a very low income can support. And then from there, they're able to take care of themselves. And then we do provide other options and teach them, because some girls ask, oh, can we use this? Can we use that? Essentially, most fabrics work. You just have to know how to sew them. And these days, there are more people who are manufacturing the fabric pads because of the environmentally friendly awareness that we now have, which is definitely a plus on Chengetai's side, that we do discourage. A lot of people have said, what about waterproof material for me, my reason for saying no to that, and the reason for a lot of the Chengetai team members being like, yeah, I think let's step away from that, is the fact that you want 4 layers of absorption. You don't want 3. And then the blood runs off onto the edge, and then she has a high chance of leaking. But definitely the fact that it is not environment, that raincoat or the thick plastic is not environmentally friendly is definitely a deterrent on our part, because we are working on other prototypes, and with those, there are definitely more directs at being eco-friendly and being biodegradable. So that's definitely the path we've taken as Chengetai, because we do need to protect our environment, and that is where the world is going.
Yeah, yeah. Can you talk about some of the health hazards, I guess, of using pads that are, because I've heard a lot of them have bleach or, other chemicals and things in them that are really not good for our bodies. Can you touch on that?
Yes, I think the problem that I have seen in African countries, there are no regulations on the pads that are bought in and the ones that are distributed. And this is our research as Chengetai. And we have seen essentially that we can actually teach how to make these pads anywhere in Africa. And that's a problem. There's no one regulating what comes in and what goes out. And essentially, the only thing written in most laws is you can't tax pads, but people are taxing them anyway. With that said, there's plastic in those pads, and many preservatives that are in them, and research is very patchy regarding the consequences of disposable pads, including plastic, etc. But a huge risk that we do see is the sanitation regarding pads that aren't manufactured properly, and the risk of women of genital tract infections, and also the simple chafing of between your legs. That's a concern, because if you have a pad there, this is a warm, moist environment that provides, the blood is great nutrients for bacteria to survive in. So if these pads don't have the necessary components in them to allow all of the blood to stay in the pad, and you continue leaking, you are putting yourself at risk of genital tract infections. And there's a vast amount. And what's scary about these infections is that over time, they accumulate, as to say, the damage accumulates, and different things can happen, such as infertility. And some women aren't aware that they have these infections. Infections just happen. They're not necessarily associated with sexual intercourse. But then a woman needs to know to look out for the scratching, the discharge, the curd-like discharge. And unfortunately, the lower the standard of the pad or the sanitary product, the higher chance you have. And repeated infections, unfortunately, lead to infertility. So those are the things that I feel like we're not looking at as Africans. And what you're saying, we bought pads. The country that you bought pads in doesn't have regulations that anyone can sell them and can put whatever they want in them, and also can remove expensive components of that pad to be pocket friendly. So that's the scary part for me.
Yeah.
And the regulations need to be more robust. Definitely, because it's great that we started work, and it's great that we're aware of sanitation and teaching the girls how to clean themselves. But how many people are? That's the question.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's so good. That's so good, because I think that that piece there that you were talking about, how there can be really devastating side effects from using some of the commercial products out there. And that's a missing piece that we often don't get taught as girls growing up. It's just like, oh, and oftentimes as you're looking on the shelves, you're looking for the cheapest one, because we live in an economy that is not stable. Yeah. And so people are struggling, and they're struggling to get the basics. And so if we're looking for like, and we also haven't been taught the importance of having quality pads. And so you're just thinking of, this is something I'm just going to throw away. So let me just pick the cheapest one. And then you pick the cheapest one. Unfortunately, you may find one that is really, it's going to cause you some health effects. So I'm glad that you're bringing that up.
Definitely. And I think people don't have many solutions, as you said. They don't have many. But for those people who are catering to such services and know what's going on, I think my one thing is try be sensitive. Something that could have long-term consequences. I understand you want to put millions in your pocket. That's fine. That's great. But then have you seen the consequences of your actions? Which many people don't. They're just shipping out products with many products, all kinds of products. That's the story. But then seeing the devastating effects of some of these things I think I haven't come across research regarding the consequences of poor pads. I've just seen people's experiences, heard stories, and women saying, "Oh no, I've been itching for 6 months," and you're like, "Wow, that's a." So from our experience and what we've seen, and the little that people bring to the surface about certain brands, you understand why Always does the amount of research that it does, because they're protecting consumers, which is important.
Yeah. So let's talk about the early days in kind of bringing your organization together. You talked about the challenge definitely of finances and being able to get the materials that you needed. What are some of the other challenges that you had to overcome?
So yes, definitely finances. We have incredible supporters. So for that, we're grateful. People who donate every month, some people who come and they say, you know what, I want to fund an outreach. And we write everything out for them and we say this is how much it will cost, and then we're good to go. One of the major ones definitely was the stigma associated with menstruation, because we are delivering a very sensitive, taboo topic every single day. But we realize that we can't just say it's taboo and leave it. We have to be context sensitive and realize that the population we're trying to appeal to might be open to the message, but now you have to deliver it in the correct manner. You have to realize that you might have to start talking about other things and then slip your message in. Or you might have to deliver it as a bunch of and then you ask questions regarding menstruation and you extract information that you need to provide the solutions that we plan to provide. Another challenge that we had was we started and we were fine, everything was going all right, and then COVID hit. 9 months into Chengetai. So we functioned based on outreaches, but we looked at each other and were like, but we can't stop. You can't stop. That's not an option. So what we did was we almost completely switched to social media and used social media to create our tutorials as frequently asked questions, where we haven't had any new questions, so we haven't created a new one, but we gathered the questions that we got so that people have solutions like ready on the internet for them. And then we also did online tutorials where we would send our tutorial and then have a week where everyone on that group could ask questions and tell us really what problems they're facing. And that worked out because people sent pictures and they got their complete pads. So I think that was amazing. And I think one other, major thing is trying to stay relevant when you're only talking about one thing. We're talking about menstrual hygiene management, and it can become redundant. It can become, okay, we've done this before. What are they saying now? So I think something that we are privileged to have as Chengetai is this amazing team with so many people, with so many great ideas. And we have our main team, and then we have sub-teams, such as our newsletter team, social media team, outreach, and then we have our ambassadors. So from that, we allow people to come in and contribute to the different outreaches or different social media campaigns. And if you're to look on the Chengetai pages, we have had our Motivation Monday, Top Tips Tuesday, but with each team coming in and going out and changing, we have so many new ideas. People are like, oh, no, I want to change this. And we allow that. I don't think we've ever said no, because people come up with such amazing things. And those teams are the glue that hold Chengetai together. Without the number of people we have, we would not be able to post every day. We would not be able to keep our social media running and go for outreaches. So these challenges are there, but what people see is like the picture that Chengetai gives, everything, but the behind the scenes work is crazy. And the incredible people who are doing it are, I could not be more grateful for them.
Wow. How did you assemble your team? You talked about the first 4 or 5 members who came together in the beginning, but when you're, bringing other people in, how were you able to do that? Because one of the difficulties in running an organization is managing the people. So human resources, right? So you have to have, you're only as good as your team is. So how were you able to assemble such a reliable team that you know you can rely on?
I think the first thing is our approach as Chengetai is that we're a family. And nothing is really set in stone. It may look like it's set in stone when you look at our pages, but nothing is really set in stone. So from the main team, we in 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we came up with what was the ambassador program, where we wanted people to keep posting and talking about Chengetai, to keep it relevant, and bring in people who wanted to fund or people who wanted to contribute something. Some people are having expertise and they want to assist. So that's what we did. And from the ambassadors, some did say during the interview, I want to be an ambassador, but I want to, play a bigger role. So those are the people who now made up our sub-teams, like the social media, newsletter, and outreach teams. And then from that, we obviously had some people leave, some people come, etc. And that's how we do it. And we allow everybody. I think the flexibility in Chengetai is what allows people to be encouraged to be with us, because I'm always saying, sometimes especially when I was at school and writing exams, I would be like, right, I can't do this for a week. And everybody would fill in and know where you're at and say, okay, I can pick up this, I can pick up that. And that's the same with everybody. And we respect everybody's schedule. Some people will say, no, I like to study for 2 months without disturbance, and we fill in that gap for them. Or I can't make the outreach and I need XYZ, and we do that. So I think the flexibility and everyone understanding that it's not cutthroat. It's not the end of the world if you don't do something. Someone else will always have your back. And at the end of the day, we're all individuals who have come together to help a cause we're all passionate about. And the fact and on our groups are crazy. You see them and we're joking half the time. Somehow we get things done. It's a lot of joking. It's conversation. So I think that's what it is. We're all passionate and we all want to make a difference in our own little way. And if we can give off an hour a week, then it's fine. And we're happy with that. Teaching young women, and I always refer to our 3 components of menstrual hygiene management: having the pad, having the facilities in terms of like a bathroom, a private area with water, and as well as having the knowledge. We can try to work at having the pad and the sanitary and sanitation and the privacy, but the third one, the knowledge, we don't emphasize enough on. These girls are walking this amazing time of their life thinking, I'm being punished so bad. And we're just not dealing with it. I think that's the main one. I think that should be the first thing they should have. They should have the knowledge to understand what is happening to the body. And so should the boys. And from that, the will know that, asking someone to get up, even if it's a boy, please can you get a pad from the teacher for me? I need to run out to the bathroom. That's an okay thing to do,
Yeah.
And I have amazing male friends who get that, and they're they're all about learning about pads. They're all about understanding, oh, what happens to your body, oh my goodness, that's incredible. And a lot of things that I've heard recently is someone saying to me, no, why would someone be embarrassed? You get to bring babies into this world. That is amazing. So if more men can have an approach, I think we definitely are doing more so the young girls justice, because those dads with that approach will then teach their sons, like, this amazing process happens to women, and all you need to do is help out. So if things work that
Yeah.
way, it would be lovely.
Yeah, and the knowledge part. Oh my goodness, I could talk to you about this for hours and hours, because I only recently learned that your period is not supposed to be painful. It's not supposed to be. And the thing about it is, I heard somebody say that it's, if you have painful periods, that's your periods tell you about your health. And so there's something else going on in there. And I was always told, because I used to get these bad cramps, not debilitating, but just bad enough for me to not want to do anything. But I remember being told, oh, when you have kids, it will go away. That was a myth, because I had the children. I had two of them. And I still continued to have cramps. But what I did find is that when I was more active in my life, my cramps would decrease. My cramps wouldn't be as bad that month. And so I think going back to that knowledge part is that we've told our girls that, if you have painful cramps, that's just your lot. And yet for many of the young girls, unfortunately, there are other things going on with the reproductive system that they may not be aware of at that time, right? And their body is either it's fibroids or fibromyalgia, or there are many other different conditions out there that they may have, but because they're just being told, you just suffer through it, take some pain pills, suffer through it, you're not the first person. And sometimes they're even being dismissed, because they're like, you're not the first person, every woman goes through this, so stop being so dramatic.
Yes. I've definitely heard those comments, like, don't be dramatic. Everyone goes through it. It's not only you. You're trying to
Yeah.
attention the big one. And you're right, there are health conditions associated with painful periods. There's a condition whereby the tissue, like the uterus is a muscle, and then there are layers. And the inner layer is the one that sheds. And sometimes during development, that inner layer is actually embedded in the other layers of the uterus or elsewhere in your body. And they can be in your abdomen. And those are things that need to be dealt with, because that's excruciating pain, number one. Number two, that's an accumulation of blood in the pocket it shouldn't even be in. And then, thirdly, when now that woman gets pregnant, and let's say she's a cesarean section, it could lead to further complications because these things haven't been investigated. And those are the things that we need to bring to surface and tell the girls, you know what, even if someone says it's normal, just go get it checked out. And then if the doctor says that maybe because it's your first few periods, or watch it for a few months and see what happens if the pain subsides. But definitely you should have a gynecologist's opinion on that to understand what's happening, because we're just fortunate that we're in a generation whereby technology is advanced in terms of ultrasound scans, and people are able to image what's actually happening to your body and see and say, oh no, she has this issue. Or some people have a condition whereby the opening of the uterus down by the cervix is not completely open. So instead of the blood going through a hole like this, it's going to a tiny hole, and which causes the pain, because obviously the uterus is contracting to try and get that blood out of there, and that force is debilitating. And like that is bleeding through a pinhole in comparison to something the diameter of a magic marker that they're exaggerating. And those are the things that they can be investigated.
Yeah. Oh my, good stuff. Very, very good stuff. I'm going to ask you some questions so
Yeah.
our viewers can get to know you a little bit better. And then we will wrap up by talking about your social media handles, where people can find you and what kind of assistance people can lend. I think you touched on that. You said, not everybody knows how to sew, but they can do something. So We'll get into that, but we're going to move into our segment here where we're getting to know you a little bit better. So, first question, what is something about yourself that people would be surprised to learn?
I think I'd say my interest in African history.
Mm.
Because I think growing up, our curriculum was very westernized, which was good and it's fine. But I think my exposure to the older you get, the more you talk to the grandparents and the more
Yeah.
you ask questions. It's like, no, that's not what I read though. And then they say, no, but that's not what happened though. That's what you were told. So I
Yeah.
read books a couple of times and I continue to on a daily basis. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Um, we're reading and learning about a romanticized version of colonization, let's say. And I
Yeah.
want to know the truth. So that's something that I really do read a lot about. And my mom was always saying, oh, really? Like, oh, this doesn't it like, do you go to bed at night, knowing that's what you've read? I'm like, wow, it can be a little bit scary. But I like knowing where we came from as Africans, as African women. And I think it's good for us to understand everything and to understand our real history, not the westernized version. Because I was reading recently, and it says only 5% of the books that children are taught from in Africa are in a local vernacular, which means that everything that was written pre-colonial times, colonial times, post-colonial times are not being written from our perspective. So that begs the
Mhm.
question, how much of it um, gives the perspective that as people who want to respect their history, um, how much of it are we able to know about? And that's a big thing for me. Um, Obviously, things like colonization came with its advantages, but I definitely want to understand where our ancestors were coming from, what they experienced, and where we're headed. So that's something that it can be controversial, but I definitely like to be enlightened about these things. Only then am I able to have a greater respect from where our people came from. Um, and that respect is something that I think is second to none, because it's easy to say, oh, but we did nothing. And it was like, oh no, but what happened there? I think a big one for me is definitely Victoria Falls. And I haven't learned as much as I would like to learn about it, and the history behind it, in the 1800s. And what we've been told, they don't quite tally up. But I like learning about what happened. I like learning about what the people who lived there respected about it and what happened there. So that's something that I love reading about and knowing. And I think it's something that I'm always talking to friends about, and I have friends who like having the same discussions.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so important to know where we are from as a people,
Mm,
our identity, what were our ancestors like, because that's essentially who we are before the world comes and tells us that we need to be different, right? So, and as far as the history books, you're right. It's history. It all depends on who's writing the story, right? The perspective that you get. And oftentimes for us, it's not showing us in a positive light, right? It's doing the opposite. So that's really great that you're taking the time to get to know the beauty and of our own history of our people. I like that.
yeah.
What is your favorite beauty product?
Oh, okay. I'll start with my face wash. Nivea face wash. I've forgotten which one exactly it is. It's radiant and something. But I definitely know that I will never change that face wash. And if they decide to, discontinue it, my life will change. Firstly, it's pocket friendly. I'm, just coming out of school and don't have the highest income. So that's definitely good for me there. So I like it. It's simple. It's only one I use, and I haven't changed it in 3 years. And then
Yeah.
I have two mascara. I believe mascara is the answer to everything. Like, you don't need, a full face of makeup, but put on mascara. It opens up your eyes, brightens up your face, and you can step out and, take over the world if you must.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love mascara as well. I am there with you. It just is something it does that just opens up your face, open up your eyes, and also.
Yes.
Um, Do you have any hidden talents?
Ooh.
We know swimming, so we know that.
I don't know how hidden, but I love to cook, and I do cook, I bake, and yeah, I think my parents. Well, then again, they're my parents, so they can't really say, "Oh, that was awful," but they. So I'll take their word for it.
Yeah. Oh my. All right. So we know that your life was very busy, of course, as a medical student. Then you had your organization that you're running. Right now, what is a typical day like for you?
Okay, so right now I am working for the family business. My parents have a farm and they do cattle breeding, right from cattle breeding to rearing and then slaughtering and meat products such as biltong, beer steaks, sausages, etc. So I really wanted to get involved. And so that's what I'm doing. We're currently working on the social media of that. So in the morning, I plan. If I have any messages, emails, etc., I reply those. And then obviously Chengetai things going on. So everything that's online, I do in the morning. And then at about midday, I head to the farm with my dad, see things, have a couple meetings. Um, and then if I have something else to do that's separate from the farm, I then head back by myself and do what I need to do. If it's meeting a few people for my own personal work, I do that. And then I get back home, maybe I usually head back home with my mom at about 9. And then we have dinner and we talk about what's going on, what has happened, and talk about the next day. Because I'm also working with my mom on a few things. And then we start the next day. But things are changing in a few months. I will be in the hospital for 24/7 for the next 18 months as of September. So it's been fun, definitely getting to see the side of the family business, spend more time with my mom and my dad, and spend more time on Chengetai. But I think it's definitely time I head back to the hospital and yeah, I'll continue from there.
Yeah. All right. So that sounds like a full day.
It can be.
Yeah. Yeah. If you could spend a day with somebody famous, who would that be and why?
Ooh, I would definitely. I think you know where I'm going with this. Chimamanda Ngozi. I
Oh,
Yes, definitely. I think she's someone who I think she's 18 or 19 years older than me. So she's quite a bit older than me, which to me, a woman who has gone through more years symbolizes wisdom. And she tackles issues that are not only topical but very relevant and provoke questions in yourself. I bought Half of the Yellow Sun. I think I was 19. I just kind of watched it by the side of my bed for like a year. And then one day I started reading it and I could not put it down. It tackles so many things: politics, marriage, feminism, colonialism. So all the things I'm interested in. And they're based in the 1930s, and I think Purple Hibiscus is based in the 1960s, if I'm not mistaken. So we're looking back on our history, but we're also seeing how many parallels not only women are having currently, but then also Black women and where we stand and what happened in the past. Obviously, her novels are based in Nigeria, but there are parallels with Zimbabwe and our experiences. And I feel like she does everything so respectfully and eloquently while bringing to surface questions that many people won't ask. And I think, gone are the days of following the status quo. That's done with. We're not doing that anymore. We're bringing to surface what we need to bring to surface. We're tackling what we need to tackle. And she's doing that incredibly. One of those ones that I, watched recently was her speech at the Humboldt Forum last year in 2021 and spoke about the Benin bronzes and bringing them back to Africa. And so those are the things that I look at and I'm like, it's easy for someone to have that platform and only talk about things that people want to hear to continue being in people's favor. But then you need to realize that with influence, with great power comes great responsibility. So she's
mm-hmm.
definitely her power and is channeling it from my perspective anyway. very well to bring to the surface things that people don't want to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. What is your favorite pastime?
Oh, favorite pastime. Exercising. I do like keeping fit, running. I go on walks with my mom most mornings, and with that comes a lot of conversation. And I do value older women and their life experiences. Even though, like, I'll use my mom as an example. She studied sociology, totally different field. But sometimes when I'm, going through something at work or with Chengetai, I'm like, what do we do, and what should I do? How should I tackle that? So talking to old women is something that I always love doing, and she has great friends. And I find myself, the more I appreciate it, I enjoy spending time getting that knowledge of people with more experience than I do.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. What do you dislike most about adulting?
Ooh. I think one of the things, I don't know if I dislike it per se, but I think the challenges, they're definitely challenges, and now you're like making decisions that will affect your whole life, not just the next 6 months.
Yeah, all that pressure.
Yes, it's pressure. But I think I choose to draw the positives from it. And I'm just like, okay, it's a challenge, but what can I draw from it? And sometimes I'm like, it's like, getting water out of a stone, trying to draw that. But then I'm like, okay, at the end of the day, I have to try and draw the positives out of those challenges, even though sometimes it just reduce, to tears, sometimes. But you have to look at it and be like, okay, but I have to, see what I'm getting out of there.
Yeah, sometimes that's part of the process, the tears. So last question I have for you, what are you most proud of?
I think I have not had a straightforward life. I've had my challenges and experiences that sometimes does not bring out, the best side of you. And the older I've gotten, the more I've realized that you can't allow your experiences and situations you faced in life, reflect on who you are. And I've kind of said to myself, at the end of the day, whatever I did, or whatever I'm doing, did I do it respectfully? Did I do it with meaning? Did I do it with love? And those are the things I always ask myself, and I went to Chizzy, and anyone who went to Chizzy knows that the school song says, did I fill the world with love? And that's something I've said to myself, ask myself so many times a day, yeah, but was that kind? Was that respectful? Was it loving? And I always say, if I can lead my life, I try to lead my life based on my favorite verse, 1 Corinthians 13:13. Now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. And I'm always, at the end of the day, when I can turn on and say, yes, that presented itself, but I led with love. That's something that I turn on and I'm like, okay, I lived a full day and it made sense. And I fulfilled what I planned on fulfilling. Because everything can happen. Things can turn upside down, especially in Zimbabwe. We know this. But if you lead with love, I think that's a great compass north for your life to know, for my life to know that I'm headed in the correct direction.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. That's a very, very good outlook that you have.
Thank
So
you.
where can we find you on social media?
Myself or Chengetai?
Chengetai.
Chengetai. So our Instagram is Chengetai27 official. Facebook is just Chengetai. Twitter is Chengetai27, and YouTube is Chengetai. So basically, if you type in Chengetai or Chengetai27, you will definitely find your way.
All right. Okay, wonderful. So, I encourage everyone who's watching this that, every now and then we come across great initiatives in the community. And I'm a firm believer that we cannot continue to look to the West or look to other countries to solve problems for us. We've got to solve our own problems. And I love that this is something that Dr. Mutangadura, sorry,
All right.
is helping us here and showing us that, listen, there are problems that we can solve very easily. And it takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of sacrifice. But when we look at the full picture of what we're doing and how we're helping our girls, it's such an amazing thing to have that kind of impact on the next generation. So I encourage anyone who's watching, go and follow Chengetai. Find out what they're doing. Find out how you can be involved, whether it be a volunteer, whether it, if you can talk about your experience, talk to the young girls, participate in outreach or the fun day that's coming up. Lots of different ways that we can help. So thank you so much for joining me.
You can contact us at any point through our social media pages and the contact details on there. And there's always things going on. Like right now, we started sewing pads for outreaches we're planning on having for December, so they can know what's going on and then they can choose what they want to assist with. Or some people say, "Oh, you did this. Can I pledge to doing something next event?" That's also perfectly okay. We write it down, we get it on, and then we speak to you when the time comes. So there are always things running. Maybe not things that we put on the social media pages because they're still in motion and we're not ready to put them out yet. But they just can reach out and we let them know what's on the table, and then they can see what they want to participate in.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Well, I'm so grateful to have had the chance to talk to you and just get to know who you are as a woman and find out what your passions are and all the things, amazing things that you're doing and how you're going off to start your internship. Wishing you all the best. All right, my dear, take care for now, and I will be in touch in the coming days.
All right, bye.
Bye, take care for now.
You too.